What is up, you guys? Marty McFly coming at you, bringing you guys the merch. So, just coming back from Record Store Day 2026. What craziness this Record Store Day was this year. So, I decided to try something a little different. I have been a big fan of Rust and Wax Records in West Palm Beach. It's quite a bit of a long drive for me, but it is a great record store to visit. They occasionally get gems in there that I've definitely taken advantage of and bought over the years. But normally, Record Store Day I do in other parts of Florida, and I wanted to try this one out. And it really was a blast. I literally got off a night shift at like 6:15. I had already been awake since 3 o'clock the day before, and decided to just take the drive. I got in line at a pretty decent hour before the store opened, and just decided, what the heck, the line looks huge, but maybe it'll still be a good time. And so I stuck it out, stayed awake, stayed in line. I think by 7:50 they pushed the line as far as they could towards the store, and they did their little morning thank you speech, and then off they go. Now, they did it in a very, I don't want to say protracted, but I will say they did it in a very gentle and patient way to get a certain amount of people in the store without going crazy overboard, without there being too congested. The first 100 people got a swag bag from Rust and Wax. They got these big laminated posters. They got slip discs. They got stickers. They got a bunch of stuff, and they're like pretty cool little like tote bags. So the first 100 people got that. That was done pretty quickly, I would say. But I would say I didn't get into the store until around 10 a.m. So I got there, I don't remember what time I got there, like 7-ish, maybe somewhere around in that time. And I didn't get into the store until about 10. There was an accident that happened right in front of it. Some girl that didn't know how to drive a truck was clearly driving a truck she didn't know how to drive, and then clobbered with another person while she was trying to pull into her parking spot. That caused a big snafu. Thankfully, that happened right as soon as I was about to go into the store, but I feel bad for everybody else. And, Rust and Wax Records really is a neat record store. It's very clean. It's nice and cold with the air conditioning, and the music's, pretty nice and loud. And it's very clean. There's a bunch of cool stuff in there, but I would say if you're looking, their prices can really vary. Now, I've gotten some really good stuff, like some Iron Maiden, like first editions for reasonable prices, but then other stuff you might notice in the store is very overpriced. Like, oh, this was a 2014 red vinyl marbled blah blah blah, and that might be $80, and you're like, well, this record is like been repressed 4,000 times. Why is it? But they have some like pricing stuff like that. I guess they go based off of the limited availability and what edition that was, because there's enough Mice and Men record in there for $50 that I can get on Amazon right now for $28. So there's some weird pricing stuff in there that I don't really understand. I'd say they're fair with their buybacks. So they basically give you 40% of the record value on Discogs, and then that's what they'll give you back in cash or store credit, which is fine. I've sold some stuff back there, and I'm too lazy to sell on eBay. So I would say, like, you get, for a store, it's not bad. The people in there are pretty nice and friendly. They have a lot of cool stuff. They do amazing record releases like the one I just did with Lamb of God. So it's a really neat store. You should go visit it once. And they constantly have artists in there going and signing stuff. I've gotten a lot of stuff from them over the years. Like when the A Day to Remember guys came in there, signed a bunch of records. They had it for just a normal MSRP value, and it wasn't overpriced. It was actually cheaper than what I saw on Amazon, and A Day to Remember signed it, so I was like, well, that's getting framed. So they do a lot of really neat stuff like that, and they had a bunch of signed copies of the new Lamb of God record, so it's a really neat store. Record Store Day, I don't go to as often anymore, because for the most part, they haven't done a lot of things I've really enjoyed as of late. There's not a lot of things I want. Most of the things I want, I don't have to wait for. I just go buy them or find them. But this year was a little different, because I think the last couple of years, As the Palace is Burned by Lamb of God, I needed that because there was no vinyl pressing at that point. And then I think after that, I got a picture disc of Dio, and I've gotten Amorphous, I've gotten Asking Alexandria, like one of their first two records, because let's be honest, anything after their first two records by Asking Alexandria turns to utter shite, and I really haven't enjoyed anything they've done. I mean, that band just needs to be done altogether, let's be honest with you. I feel bad for Ben, but God, it's bad. Like, Asking Alexandria, really. Now it's just a British hard rock band, except their lead singer can't really, like, sing, like, in metal or hard rock. I mean, he does all right with country and blues. He sounds pretty good, but I would say his modern rock stuff, he sounds like he's tone deaf. And they were terrible live. So if you guys are hoping to see Asking Alexandria one day and hoping they're good, save yourself the time, energy, and money, man. They were not good. Anyway, it's like I said, I feel bad for Ben because he's a pretty good artist, but their lead singer just meh. Anyway, RSD 2026, pretty fun. I was pretty exhausted. Got home, immediately crashed for like the next 12 hours, but it was worth it so I could have this. Look outside your window. This is the limited edition splatter vinyl. If you're not familiar with this project, we've been waiting a long time for this. This is four of, basically, if you know the band Slipknot, which how could you not if you've been watching this channel or been living under a rock? You should still have been able to hear about Slipknot. Four major members that you probably hear the most about when it comes to Slipknot are a part of this album. This was created across multiple eras of Slipknot, but specifically during the album that they were making. They basically just had like a bunch of side tracks, a bunch of like little intros and outros, and this was literally created in another studio while the album was being produced. And they've been threatening this record for a very long time. I mean, if you think about going back towards not God Hates Us All, Good Grief from Slayer, but I mean, even prior to We Are Not Your Kind era Slipknot, and before Point Five, the Great Chapter. But if you think about like All Hope Is Gone era Slipknot, and you go to like the bonus tracks, essentially that was kind of what they were trying to give off of this record. And then going up into through We Are Not Your Kind era Slipknot, this essentially is just a mellow hard rock album, and it was created during their album sessions when they were creating on an older album. They were literally, these four guys, Jim Root, Sid, Corey, Clown, they were literally in another studio while they were creating the album, and then they had this. And they've been threatening to release this for a very, very long time, and it really pissed off Slipknot fans to the point where Slipknot fans didn't care anymore. They're like, you know what, it's never coming out, it's fine, stop talking about it. And then in 2025, Clown comes out, says, it's coming out, I promise, it's coming out, don't worry, it's coming out, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't get released. And then at the end of 2025, he says, look, the album's already been sent out, it's sent to the distributor, the record label, it's already pressed, the artwork is done, the songs are done, everything's done, it's just out of my hands. So, lo and behold, if you watch one of my earlier videos, we finally had the announcement on Record Store Day, kind of like a surprise announcement, because the Instagram page for this band I didn't know existed. But I flip open through RSD and I'm like, what's that? What's that? Lo and behold, it says, look outside your window on the RSD playlist. And I said, is this it? No, it can't be it. Why would they just... And it was like, oh my God, I went to Instagram and that was like, it's the band. Well, we've all been waiting for. And I will say, I am not disappointed. It is so left of center, so different than everything I would have expected this to be. It is not Slipknot in any way, shape, or form. There's a couple of heavier tracks on there I really enjoy, but this is a love letter to Ministry, The Cure, Nine Inch Nails, and Radiohead. This is a pure, unadulterated love letter to those bands. And I'm okay with that. I mean, all those bands are great. I don't really listen to Nine Inch Nails or Ministry that often. I'll be honest with you, it's never on my rotation. I respect the bands immensely for what they've given to the heavy metal community. And crazy live shows. I've seen Ministry, I saw them at Welcome to Rockville many moons ago, I think in the very first year. But I'll be honest, I was like, all right, cool. At least I got it off the bucket list. They mean a lot to a lot of people who are big into industrial music. But this band, this album really is a love letter to industrial and Radiohead. And I'm okay with that. I think they did a good job with it. It was not what I was expecting in the least bit. I almost thought that this was going to have a little bit more not influence, a little bit more like double bass, just a little bit of tincture of something. But I would say the heavier tracks are still a lot of fun. And the biggest surprise to this is Christina Scabbia from Lacuna Coil being on this record, doing 2 songs. Her voice is well noted into the album. She was basically told by Jim, I think it was by Jim and Clown, to write a poem about A, B, and C and put the poem on it. We're going to put it on one of her tracks. And that's exactly what they did. So she did the entire poem in Italian. I don't know what all the lyrics are because this actually did not come with a lyric sheet. So you basically have to look it up online and figure out everything that she talked about. But the meaning of what her poem is online. And to hear Christina Scabbia's voice again and the immediate track following after this is the big surprise for me. So if you go towards Christina, right, track number 4, and it dumps into Is Real, that's one of my favorite transitions off the whole album. It is a blast to hear her go from her poem in Italian into this just hard rock, kind of like proto 2000s hard rock track with Corey doing a little bit more gruffier vocals. It's a blast. I'm glad this came out finally. It gives me something else to enjoy and sink my teeth into and spend a lot more time with. And this was 100% worth the wait. I know some people are probably not going to be happy because of the wait. Maybe they were expecting something else. But if you go into this with an open mind and you think you're going to get a little bit of Pink Floyd, a little bit of Ministry, a little bit of Radiohead, a little bit of Nine Inch Nails, and maybe even like a tidbit, a tincture, if you will, of like Manson and Manson's influences. Now, granted, I don't really care for Marilyn Manson anymore. He's kind of fucking weird if you ask me, but I don't really care for Manson stuff. I used to like him in the beginning, and the dude's just like jacked, but his live shows are pretty terrible. He's just so stoned out of his mind at his live shows. They're not even enjoyable. I sat through 2 of his live shows, one at Ozfest, one at Mayhem, and both times I was like, the heck did I just watch? The dude is so stoned out of his mind, he has no idea what's going on with his own songs. So there's a couple of Corey Taylor moments on there where you can feel the Manson vibes. But then again, if you think about Manson's influences, I mean, that's where a lot of these influences come from. So you can tell there's a little bit of overlap. But I love what Corey and the guys did with this record. I genuinely think I had a great time with it. There's so many surprises. And I would say if you're looking for a Slipknot era, I would not go towards All Hope Is Gone, We Are Not Your Kind, to think about this. I would go towards Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat. This reminds me so much of that record. Obviously, before Corey Taylor was in Slipknot. Spend some time with it because there's a vinyl pressing of Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat. I actually got mine from a record store in downtown Charleston, South Carolina. My mom picked it up for me. Love you, Mom. Thank you so much for that. And this reminds me of that. It's just so left of center, not exactly what you'd expect, and it's just a blast. I'm so glad I got it. I'm so glad it came out when it did. Sink your teeth into it. Let me know how you feel, but I genuinely enjoy this. I'm really glad it came out when it did, and it was probably the best part of Record Store Day 2026. And, of course, we had to pick this up. So, like I said, Look Outside Your Window was the 99.9% reason why I went to RSD this year. I also wanted to look forward to those midnight releases again, how the stuff we used to do in high school where you go spend all night in front of Black Friday. They do all these Black Friday giveaways and events. You're eating all night like with your friends. You're like drinking coffee and just laughing and just talking shit and having a great time. And that's what RSD, I feel like, does a lot for our community again. And everybody was so nice and got along. And if Look Outside Your Window wasn't a part of RSD this year, I probably would have just went home and went to bed. But this is a great reason why I'm so happy I went, because I do not have this on vinyl, and going online and trying to find certain Misfits albums for a reasonable price is pretty hard to do, but I like both eras of the Misfits. I mean, people are like, oh, I'm a Michael Graves, or sure, go. Like, I like both for their own reasons. I just like that it's punk and Halloween. Like, punk, hardcore, Halloween, all mixed together. But this, of course, is Famous Monsters, Roadrunner Records from the Misfits. You know, even as a kid, I'll be honest with you, I didn't really understand the Misfits. It took me a while to get older to really understand and really appreciate what this band has done for the punk and hardcore scene. But I do enjoy this album a lot. I would say it's a tough call. I don't really have a favorite Misfits record. I will say I do like the compilation album that they did that has Halloween 1, Halloween 2. That's how I started listening to the Misfits, because it's got everything. It's got We Are 138, and of course it's got Halloween 1, Halloween 2. And I think that ended up being my favorite, record from the Misfits, just because it had everything on it. But this is great too. This is a fantastic album. And I did not realize, I guess I wasn't paying attention. And then all of a sudden I look at the RSD list while I'm in line. I'm like, oh, shoot, I don't have this on vinyl, and I can't find it anywhere for a reasonable price. You can get it online, but they actually had this for, $30.99. I was like, heck yeah, man, that's coming home with me. So I'm not sure how many pressings this album goes into, because the Misfits are kind of like an anomaly in their own. But really glad to actually have this and to start playing this one. Now, this is not part of RSD, so if you were thinking it was, my apologies. But it's Converge. I wanted to pre-order this album so bad, and I did actually pre-order from Amazon. And then I was like, you know what? Some record stores are going to have this. It's not going to sell out everywhere. Actually, it might sell out everywhere. So I was like, ooh, maybe I'll regret this decision. But I was like, let me go to a record store and try and buy it from them. So I knew that Rust and Wax had this. So I went immediately as soon as I picked up those 2 albums, I picked this up. This has been one of my favorite Converge releases in a long time. I really enjoy what this band has done over the years, but even their last record, once I spent time with it, I loved it. Now, a lot of people were kind of plus or minus on the last Converge release because it's a double album, but when they partnered with Chelsea Wolfe in order to do it almost wasn't Convergey enough, right? But over time, and after listening to the album again, you realize there's a lot of Converge moments, and it's just a different album, and it's a good time. The final track, the closing track of the last Converge album, was a blast, and there's just some really good moments on there. But I will say I wanted this so bad to have it in the collection. I played it on Spotify 1,000 times, on YouTube just to listen to it, and I'm really glad I picked it up because this is a fantastic release. And how fortunate are we? We're getting 2 Converge albums this year. The next one's coming up here in the next couple of months. So be on standby, man. The next Converge album's coming out for this. The newest track sounds fantastic. Long live Converge, one of the big 4 of metalcore, one of our metalcore heroes for just heavy metal and hardcore music. Really glad these guys are still around kicking our asses. Last but not least, someone came into Rust and Wax and did a massive dump of cassettes recently, and every once in a while I see cassettes that meant a lot to me, whether I listen to the band on CD or I listen to in cassette as a kid with my brother. My brother gave me his whole cassette collection when I finished school and everything, and what an honorific for me. I was so happy. I mean, to be able to, this collection that I've been listening to for so long as a kid with my big brother, and for him to bestow his collection on me was just a huge honorific. He eventually gave me his entire vinyl collection and then took back half. Basically, he took back the entirety of the Sabbath collection, 1 through 13, all original presses. And I was kind of bummed about that because I was like, why are we giving big things back after you gave that to me? But I can understand because it'd be hard for me to part with that too. But this is one of the bands that my brother got me into as a little kid, Lillian Axe, and this is their self-titled record. And I would say they're one of their biggest songs off of this is probably just track 1, Dream of a Lifetime and Inside Out, but this is just great Dokken era, Sabotage era heavy metal. These guys are so talented, and they've released a ton of records over the years. I would say Psycho Schizophrenia was my introduction to Lillian Axe, and that's probably why it's my favorite album by then. But their self-titled is perfection. So if you haven't checked these guys out, check them out. And last but not least, one of the greats of death metal, Pestilence. I was so shocked to see this on cassette, but this is Malevis Maleficarum, and wow, one of the greats of death metal, just to get it on cassette and OG press. I dug through it because they had so many of these, and I wasn't sure if this was, but I double-checked online and double-checked the J-card and everything, so this is an OG press coming off of Roadrunner Records, 1988. But yeah, man, classic death metal. Check it. This is that era, like if you're thinking about early Suffo, early, well, before even Cannibal, man, but Mantis and Death, early stuff. These guys are no different. Severed, Survival era, Autopsy. This is in that family, and this is even a little bit more of that brutal, gory death metal, but really cool to actually have a cassette copy of that. So that is it from me. That was actually a blast for Record Store Day. I'm so glad I was able to pick up all Look Outside Your Window, because that album I know was going to sell out. Our record store had 21 copies, which was the highest I saw out of all the record stores. I know Park Avenue, probably some of those guys had copies, but I don't know how. But they really supported the community on this one. You were allowed to put in, like, what's your number one album you're looking forward to, and they had 21 copies. They only had a couple left by the time I was done in line, so I'm glad I got it. I hope, you can grab a copy for yourself if you're looking forward to it. Like I said, it's Nine Inch Nails, it's Radiohead, it's all of those wonderful things, and it's a pleasant surprise for me. I really had a blast with this album so far. But long live Record Store Day, long live records in general, support your local record store. I don't know when the next time I'll do RSD, unless if it's something like this where it's like, oh man, I have to wait before I can grab this up. Maybe they'll do a special edition of an album I've always wanted. Like maybe they'll redo Killswitch Engage as Daylight Dies, the deluxe edition, because Roadrunner Records, I pre-ordered it last time, got a spot. It took a year and a half for it to come out, and I was tired of them having my money. So I got my money back, and of course 2 weeks later, my buddy got his. So maybe we'll get lucky and Killswitch will do another deluxe edition as Daylight Dies for RSD. But for right now, I think this was a great way to get back to my store and show them some love. I know there's a lot of plus or minuses on RSD. Some people, it clogs up the plants, but hey, it gets us all out of bed, gets us out of the house, gets us to be back with our community like the old days where we used to sit in the record store for hours and just talk shit and listen to tunes and just that brother and sisterhood that we used to have that we look forward to. RSD is a little bit more complicated because like you're only in the store for a little while because it's just pure insanity, but it was a blast. I'm glad I did it this year. I hope you guys got a chance to get what you guys wanted. Be on the lookout if you're not able to get a copy. Look outside your window. It's coming. The release date, they got a pre-order date for June, and then we got a final release date this summer. So keep your eyes peeled, and then you'll be able to get your hands on that too for the deluxe wild release. It'll probably be another year at least before we get another Not album. But in the meantime, we have this. So hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are doing okay, taking care of each other. Long live Record Store Day. Long live and support your local record store. Peace.